Hello and welcome back to KXM Plus. Thanks for joining us, whether you are on social media, our website, our app, or our now streaming app on any platform. That's Roku TV, Fire TV, and Apple TV. Today is our Nick's First Warning Weather Show with, of course, our meteorologist, Nick Bannon.
Esme, what's up?
Everything is up. It's great outside. We had a great weekend, great Father's Day weekend.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good. We had some beneficial rain for Dad as well this weekend, which was nice.
And can we expect more of that?
You know, I would really like to say that we've got a lot of rain coming, but alas, we've just got these little mini 10% rain and storm chances that start to bubble back into the area, especially later this week and through the weekend. It's almost that annoyingly frequent rain chance of just 10% that means that you get your hopes up thinking maybe today's my day, but the chances are that it isn't. But then occasionally you'll get lucky and that storm or shower will pop up over you. So that's the sort of pattern that we'll be heading into here. Actually, as we head into summer, astronomical summer anyway. Yeah, begins on Friday. Would you believe it?
I can't believe it. It feels like we were already in summer, but we are officially now in summer.
Yeah, well, that's of course the difference. Meteorological summer is June, July, and August, and then astronomical summer is to do with the position of the sun relative to the Earth, and that one begins here this Friday for the longest day of the year, and then our days start to slowly get shorter as we head through the summer season. So first day of summer, longest day of the year.
Yeah, and probably the hottest because it's been pretty hot.
Just wait. We'll get deeper into summer. July and August can get hotter than this.
Well, Nick, we're not talking about summer right now. We are actually going to dive into winter, a winter outlook maybe?
Yeah, of sorts. Basically, we get a preview of what winter might look like based on what we're thinking the pattern that develops is going to turn into as far as ENSO or El Niño Southern Oscillation. And frequent viewers of our show here will know that we've talked about ENSO quite a bit. In fact, we had another La Niña winter this past winter. And then since then, a couple of months ago, La Niña ended and we entered this period known as ENSO Neutral, which is neither La Niña or El Niño. And that's because the sea surface temperatures in the eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean got close enough to average and not too warm or not too cold that we entered this sort of middle of the road pattern known as ENSO Neutral, which really doesn't give any specific indications about what our weather pattern is going to look like. But we've got an updated outlook from the Climate Prediction Center about what sort of phase of ENSO we're looking to experience here over the coming months, and that now includes the coming season of fall and winter on top of spring, which of course we are exiting now. And these gray bars here indicate the chances of ENSO Neutral. And ENSO Neutral, again, is what we're in now. So very high odds of ENSO Neutral continuing into these 3-month pairings at the bottom of your screen, May, June, and July. And then June, July, and August is JJA. July, August, September is JAS. And clearly during this period, ENSO Neutral continues to dominate the forecast there. But slowly as we go through the summer and into fall, SON, September, October, November, we start to see the odds of ENSO Neutral going down a little bit and the odds of both of the other two phases of ENSO going up. The red bars indicating the odds of El Niño, which is typically what we want here in Central Texas in the winter because it usually gives us more rain. Those odds are still pretty low, even though they go up a little bit here this fall into the winter. They're still very low. But then the third option, if it's not neutral, if it's not El Niño, it's La Niña. And the odds of La Niña do start to go up a bit. But DJF here is key. DJF, you ever have DJF play at your wedding?
No.
No, you wouldn't want to hire DJF at your wedding. DJF is actually not a DJ. It's December, January, and February. Sorry, my dad jokes from Father's Day are carrying over. But DJF is the winter, meteorological winter, December, January, and February. And what's key about this most recent outlook released by the Climate Prediction Center, they put this out late last week, is that the odds now of ENSO Neutral during the wintertime, during DJF, are now above 50% for the first time.
Wow.
Previously, the odds of all three, La Nina, Neutral, or El Nino, were all below 50%, meaning that while some were more likely than others, none of them were particularly likely. But now we're starting to see that ENSO Neutral is looking a little more likely, more than 50% likely than of happening here this coming winter, followed by the odds of La Nina, which is around 37%, and then the odds of El Nino, which is close to 12%. So we're almost able to rule out El Nino for this coming winter. Now, remember the movie Dumb and Dumber? Have you seen that, Esme?
Yes, I have.
Where they say, so you're saying there's a chance. Remember
There
that
is a
famous
chance.
line?
So you're saying there's a chance.
Exactly. So yes, there is a chance of El Nino here this winter, but those odds are super low and they have not been increasing. In fact, those odds have been slowly decreasing as these monthly outlooks for the ENSO pattern have been coming out. The odds of El Nino this winter actually dropped a full percentage point from last month. The odds of La Nina dropped 2% since last month, and the odds of ENSO Neutral for the winter are up 3% since last month. So it's heading in the direction of an ENSO Neutral winter. Now, what that means is that we're not looking for an El Nino winter, which is what, as I mentioned, we would love to have here in Central Texas for the winter time.
What we wish we had last winter.
I know, it's because it's usually wetter, and we usually actually have less Arctic outbreaks, despite it usually being cooler as a whole. We just have less extremes from a cold perspective, usually in an El Nino winter. But more importantly, the storm track, the jet stream, moves through a lot of the southern tier states of the U.S., bringing us more opportunities for rain and storms. And the last El Nino winter that we had was 2 winters ago, and we did have more rain than normal, a couple inches of bonus rainfall, which, of course, was a good thing. So we're ruling out this winter being El Nino because the odds are so low at 12%.
So we know already this far in advance.
Yeah, and the odds are, the likelihood of this forecast being accurate actually go up as we get past spring. We'll talk about that in a second. There's about a 1 in 3 chance of getting a La Nina winter, though, with those odds at about 37%. And this is would be our second La Nina in a row. We had La Nina last winter. It meant drier than normal conditions, which, of course, as we've said, it's not what we want. We've been in a consistent drought. Our lakes, while they are up over the last few months, are still well below average. But there's a 1 in 3 chance of getting another La Nina here this winter, which is drier and warmer for us here in Central Texas. Of course, a warm winter is not exactly what you want either, because it helps to usually dry out the soil a little bit more. This last winter was actually kind of interesting. It was drier than normal, but it was actually slightly cooler than normal. So it wasn't fully following the La Nina pattern, at least in Austin, but it did follow the La Nina pattern from a precipitation perspective. So there's a 1 in 3 chance of La Nina this winter. It's almost ruling out the fact that we're of seeing an El Nino winter because we're now leaning toward heavily it being an ENSO Neutral winter. Now, you sort of mentioned about the accuracy and do we really know this far in advance of what's going to happen in the winter time when we're barely entering summer now? Of course, meteorologically speaking, we've been in summer for a couple of weeks. Well, so the National Weather Service and NOAA have actually looked into how accurate the forecasts are for an ENSO fall and winter phase several months in advance. And you could see that the odds here, when the forecast is issued in February for the period of November through January, that the forecasts actually usually don't do so well. Both the dynamic models and statistical models here don't do that well. In March, the dynamical models, they're improved. The statistical models do not. So forecasts in March for the following fall and winter, November through January, still don't usually do that well. And even in April, the odds of those forecasts being correct are still less than 40%. Then you get into May, you see a big boost in the statistical model accuracy and the dynamical models starting to near the 50% range. And then you get into June, which is now, of course. And those, the model accuracy for forecasts for ENSO made in June using the June, what's happening in June as the input to the forecast usually is way up. And this is what we call the spring predictability barrier when it comes to ENSO forecasting, meaning you got to get through spring before these forecasts are really worth a grain of salt. And now we are through spring, so now we can say more confidently about this forecast heading into the coming fall and winter. And of course, the accuracy of all of that continues to go up as we head through the coming months, as you would expect it would as we got closer to fall and winter. You would expect that the forecast gets better and better. So that about sums up the ENSO portion here. But going back to that first slide of note, the general takeaway is that we're looking for ENSO neutral conditions here this winter, but still not ruling out La Nina. Exactly, the gray bars.
Wow. And in that other chart that you showed, not only does it get more accurate, but it seems like the charts are similar each month.
Yeah, less of a difference between the statistical and the dynamical models. I know a lot of people are probably watching at home, and the next question on their mind then is, so what does an ENSO neutral winter mean here in Central Texas? If El Nino is what we want because we need the rain, La Nina is what we don't want because it's usually dry. And warm. What does ENSO neutral mean? And the tough thing is that it can mean a lot of different things. It means that the water temperatures in the eastern equatorial Pacific are no longer guiding the main weather patterns that we experience in the winter. And then we start having to look at other sorts of patterns that can set up that are much harder to figure out this time, this far in advance, unlike ENSO, which can be very predictable beginning in the summer months, the late spring and summer months, and then going forward. You can get a really good idea what the general expectations are for winter this far out if La Nina is in the forecast or if El Nino is in the forecast. But since neither is expected, then the forecast for this coming winter becomes less clear. Sure, we're getting more clarity on the fact that it's going to be ENSO neutral, but the actual weather patterns that we would see in the winter then depend on other things and not the influences in the eastern equatorial Pacific. So it does nothing to actually gauge or really help our winter forecast other than to be able to ignore those other two things, La Nina and El Nino this time around. So what it means also for those of you curious about what we can expect this winter is that we will have to wait until much closer to winter to get a better idea about what to expect, looking at some of those other shorter term patterns that can set up rather than this big dominating pattern that we call ENSO.
And Nick, we usually do either winter outlooks or summer outlooks pretty often here on KXAM Plus. How often do you get an update on what our winter is going to look like?
So we can get these sort of updates from ENSO every month. I think they come out the second Thursday of every month. So this will not be our last discussion about what's going to happen this winter. And certainly if the odds start to grow for La Nina and sort of reversing the trend that we've seen the last couple of months, then that would give us a better indication of what we're expecting here this winter versus just thinking about this ENSO neutral pattern being more likely. But it means that early July, we'll get another update. Early August, we'll get another update, and so forth as we continue through summer into the fall. And then, so we'll get a better idea about at least this particular climate pattern and weather pattern as we get closer to fall and winter. But as far as the actual outlook for this winter, if we are in an ENSO neutral period, we will have to wait much closer to winter to get a better idea about what to expect from that perspective, probably until the end of fall. We'll have a better idea about what this winter will bring. If it's not going to be La Nina or El Nino, then it's more tied to some of these other patterns that can develop that are much harder to predict this far out.
Well, Nick, We are live streaming right now on our Facebook, and I
Yep.
did want to share with you the Evil Mopac Facebook page says that DJF is a DJ.
Oh, DJF. Oh, okay.
So I'm guessing you guessed that right.
All right, Evil Mopac, appreciate you watching. You can have DJF DJing your weddings, but only in the wintertime, I would guess.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that, we're in the final days of astronomical spring. So I figured now would be a good time to talk about the temperatures as we wrap up the season and head into summer, if you've got time for that. And of course, Esme, if you've got any other questions or comments from Evil Mopac or anyone else, then feel free to chime in. This is what we're expecting, though, here this coming next few days. Of course, as we've mentioned, astronomical summer begins on Friday. And keep an eye on this number. This is the average for this time of year. And we're really not going to be too far from it. Sure, every single day will be above average, but not by a lot. 97 here Wednesday, 96 Thursday and Friday for the first day of summer, starting slightly warmer than normal. And then we're much closer to normal Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and Tuesday of next week. A degree above normal is not abnormal. It's just slightly above the 30-year average. I think what more of us are going to really feel over the coming days is the fact that the humidity is not going away anytime soon. We're going to continue to be in this very humid category through every single day of the coming week. And at times, we try and dip our toes there into the oppressive category. And all that means is the dew point goes up. Dew point 70 or above, pretty tropical. And then dew point 75 or above, just abysmal. And we'll be trying to do that here at times as we get into late Wednesday and into Thursday. Still, you're not going to notice a huge difference. It will be basically very humid every single day. And then the last question you're probably asking or thinking about, and it's the last slide on my selection of slides here, rain chances. And it's, again, that annoying time of year where rain chances are low every single day, which means that you'll see, I hope today's my day of rain. And the chances are that it is not, with rain chances at just 10 to 20%. It also goes back to that Dumb and Dumber quote of you're saying there's a chance. Yes. So if it rains on you on Sunday with a 10% rain chance,
don't be surprised.
Don't be surprised, because we said there's a chance. But the chances of rain are still fairly low in that 10 to 20% range. And that's what we're going to be diving into on KXAN here coming up at 4 o'clock, because Thursday's rain chances do jump out as being slightly higher before we go ahead and talk about those slightly higher rain chances here for Monday and Tuesday. So at 4 o'clock, we'll be talking about the timeline for a few of these spotty showers and storms, where they would be more likely to form. And then we'll give you some preview of that slightly higher rain and storm chance for next Monday and Tuesday as well. And as I often say, this time of year, it's not like the middle of winter where you could just get a few showers without storms. Chances are, if you've got showers around, you've probably got some thunder and lightning and therefore storms around as well. So we'll be diving into that here coming up at 4 o'clock, Esme.
And Nick, we have your article published on our homepage, kxan.com, titled "This Weather Pattern is Now Likely This Winter."
Yes.
We talked probably about everything in this article. Was there anything that we missed?
We've pretty much covered it here. I talked about the differences on what an El Nino winter looks like, not just here in Central Texas, but nationally. And then what a La Nina winter is like, not just here in Central Texas, but nationally. So thinking about those two things probably being unlikely here this coming winter, it would mean that we would be looking at that ENSO neutral period. And that's the ENSO neutral pattern or phase of ENSO. The neutral phase is what is now likely here for this coming winter. So that's what I mean by that. And certainly appreciate all of you who have checked out on this story on KXAN.com here today.
And that is still on our homepage. You can find it at kxan.com. You can also watch more exclusive videos just like this one on our app, KXAN Plus. Any app store on your TV that is a Roku TV, Fire TV, or Apple TV. You can also catch us on social medias, our website, and our mobile app.
Yeah, we're everywhere, Esme. You can find me on X. You can find me on Instagram
Facebook.
And old Facebook as well. An oldie but a goodie.
An oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Nick, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks.